lawyers are overwhelmed and they are not sure where to start. So I always say start with yourself. Just start with you. Start with what are the legal services you really want to provide and who are the clients you really want to walk through that door.
Don't fall back on I'll just do it myself. That's a cop out. And again, if you want to take the time to learn it and be an expert, that's one thing. But ultimately, the smart lawyers find the best vendors, the best relationships, and invest there.
All right, I'm kicking off. So hello, everyone. Welcome back to Answering Legal's 2023 Law Firm Summer Reboot Camp. My name is Nick Werker. If you've been following along with us today, you know that this is Answering Legal Podcast Network Day here at camp. We've been featuring live episodes of all the shows in our company's podcast network. And now I'd like to welcome you to the first ever live recording of the Everything Except the Law podcast. I can't believe that's true. We've done 50 episodes and no live recordings. If this is your first time tuning in to Everything Except the Law, this is the podcast where we share expert advice on all the parts of running a law firm that attorneys weren't exactly trained for back in law school. Today marks a very exciting milestone for our show as we are, like I said, recording our 50th episode. And to celebrate this milestone, we're going to be talking about my personal favorite topic, which is true. This is my favorite topic, and I honestly, it drives me a little crazy that I can't get away from it sometimes, but it's law firm marketing. And for this episode, I am very rightfully joined by two incredible guests, making her third appearance on the show, which says something about how much I love and appreciate and respect her, is the President of Law Quill, Annette Choti, and making his debut on our podcast is the President of FRETZIN, Inc., Steve Fretzin. We're excited to have you both here. I know that was a mouthful out of me. I appreciate you both so much for being here. I want to ask first, and this is something that I haven't talked about in a while, and it's SEO, which I think is like, it used to be a hot topic and now it's not a hot topic. So do lawyers need to be approaching SEO differently than they did a few years ago? And if you think so, what adjustments should they be making?
So SEO is not dead. You know, we hear this all the time, every year, every 2 years. Everybody's like, SEO is dead. It's something else is the new shiny object. But at the end of the day, SEO is just search engine optimization, right? So it's just trying to get your content, your website, whatever it is that you are doing, to have the Google bots like you and put you at the top of their search engine. So, you know, over time, fashion changes, right? Things change. But everybody's still wearing clothes, well, hopefully. And so even though the fashions change, everybody is still wearing clothes. So SEO has changed a little bit, in my opinion, especially with the Google rollout. I have it. I think a lot of other people have it as well, where you can have the AI generated little box at the top. But at the end of the day, AI, you know, they're not our robot overlords quite yet. Close, but not quite. And so they are still pulling their answers from the best content that is at the top of their search engine. So I think that the distinguishers will be, and the changes will be, that everybody's trying to use ChatGPT and everything else, all these AI tools to try to get to the top of the search engine. But everybody is doing that, right? So you need to have content on there that showcases your expertise, authority, trustworthiness, but is also unique, is clever, is insightful, is genuine, is approachable, right? Is all of these things that set you apart. And that is where I think you will shine on the search engines, and people will still find you at the top. And the Google bots will promote you in their little box at the top as well.
And I would take a step back and ask the question, you know, why SEO? And is that really for me? From a standpoint of a lawyer looking at who his or her target audience is, where business is coming from traditionally, what the website's use is. Is it for validation as an expert? Is it for recruitment purposes? Is it a warehouse to store information about, you know, the different players on the team? And if you're not really looking to be at the top of Google or it's too competitive of a landscape, you may want to consider all the other, dozens of mediums and maybe don't invest in SEO. It doesn't mean you can't create great content. Doesn't mean you can't get backlinks and do some of the basic things that are just good practices to have. But I think that there's some lawyers where that's going to be the most important thing they need to do is to get people to their website and convert those leads. And others that are in the B2B space or that are in a different area, they're going to look at SEO and go, is that really, the bite that I need to take to market my business effectively? And many would say, no, it's not.
That's interesting. I mean, I think that's the reason that the world of marketing is so diverse. I mean, my opinion is pretty different than that. I think that pretty much all your competition is working SEO. And so there are different ways to work your SEO for sure. There's some law firms that do better on social media, or they do better with, different formats, podcasts or video content or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, people still need to find you on the internet. And if they're not finding you, they're finding your competitors. So I would definitely want them to find you.
Yeah. And again, that's the important thing of diversity in thought. And again, I'm a huge fan of SEO. I feel like that if there's 500 attorneys in Chicago ahead of me competing for the same business, for me to get in and jump in and spend thousands and thousands of dollars and hundreds of to thousands of man hours trying to pump out content to compete with that, there might be LinkedIn. It's not that I won't be found. I'll just be found under my name. I won't be found under certain search results, or I just do pay-per-click and cut the cord that way. So I think, again, you have to look at the situation, the scenario, and identify, what is it going to take to become number one or on page 1 or 2, and is that really worth the squeeze to get the juice?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak to that really quickly. I mean, we have law firms that are solo practitioners that beat really, really, really large law firms in really competitive markets. And the way they do it is they don't use the same formula. They still are at the top of the search engines. They're just not using the same formula. So instead of just going after a personal injury, Chicago personal injury attorney, right? We get them to the top of the search engine if they're a trucking accident attorney, right? Or they're specifically dealing with nursing home abuse or mesothelioma cases. So I think, and you may or may not agree with me on this, but the more specialized your legal practice is, the more you can, right? They all say the riches are in the niches, right? That's with anything, including law firms. And so I think if you find that you have a specialty or that you have, some sort of, great way of approaching the law or specific area of law that is your niche, you will always do better than just sort of being like personal injury attorney in New York City. Like, that's a hard one.
That's tough. That's a tough one.
I want to delve into that a little more, because I think one of the problems with SEO, Steve, you kind of explained it, is that it can be daunting for a firm, like say you're just starting out or you formed a new firm or whatever the case may be. And you do look in a competitive area like Chicago at, like, I don't know, DUI lawyer. And you Google that in your area and you see that there are hundreds of results already there. And you say, that SEO might not be for me. Obviously it is important in basically all aspects of life to have a multifaceted approach. But I don't think that you would want to abandon SEO altogether. So what other sort of like mediums can lawyers get clients from? Because we're talking about marketing here, right? You're not really doing a good job of marketing if you're not getting clients. Where should lawyers be to have this like well-rounded approach of getting clients while maybe they work on SEO, because it's not an overnight venture to begin with?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So I'm on the business development marketing front. I lean towards the business development for most of the clients I work with, and marketing, is a play that has to come into it. So what we try to do is identify, what they enjoy, where their targets are, where they feel comfortable placing, whether it's TikTok ads, whether it's a billboard, whether it's SEO, whether it's networking with other lawyers to develop strategic partner relationships. We look at all the different avenues and outlets for how business can be generated. We also try to find like where the gaps may be in a particular marketplace. And to your point, Annette, as you said, the niches are in the riches. So the trucking, the guy who is one of the top trucking injury attorneys in Chicago is a client of mine. And, he does mostly his business through relationships. He just knows all the attorneys and they refer him all the big trucking cases that come around. He does that. He goes out and he speaks, he presents, he's traveling around and just doing it through relationships. I think he's doing SEO, but again, I don't think he's trying to get on page one. So it's looking at all the different avenues and figuring out like where maybe the low hanging fruit is. Who, there are attorneys, that are handing out dozens and dozens of referrals, a month or a year to other attorneys. And who are they? And how do I get that business to me instead of it going to someone else? And that could end up making your year. So I think there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that there are different marketing techniques. I'll give you one that is very successful in Kansas City, which is where I'm from, which has nothing to do with the internet. There is a law firm here called Jungle Law. And if anybody is watching this and knows anything about the Kansas or Missouri area, they will be laughing right now, because there are these huge billboards as you drive down the highway, and the guy from Jungle Law is like Tarzan on branches. And the truth is, you will never forget it. You will never forget him. You may not know the type of law he does. You may not know anything else about him, but I guarantee you, anybody that is watching or listening to this that is in this area or passes even through this area will know Jungle Law before they are out of this area. And so that is the method that he has used to, good for him, right? Everybody knows him. So, I think it's fantastic. I think a lot of it depends on, who you are as a law firm, as a person. There are some people who can go and speak, several times a month and fly across the country and make those relationships and make those connections. And then there's other people who just, maybe they have a small law firm and a family and they're just not able to commit those kind of time resources for that. And I think that really what you said is that it is very individualistic. I'll give you an example because the issue was brought up of DUI attorney. So there's a DUI attorney that I know, and she's in a very competitive market. But her story is this. She got a DUI when she was in law school, and she thought that was it. It was over. She thought, that's it. I'm not going to be able to finish. I'm not going to be able to get my, she thought the world had ended, and it didn't. And she's fine. And she's a lawyer. And now, even though she never wanted to do DUI law, that's all she does. And her entire approach from the minute you hit her website to any of her social media or marketing is that she is the one that is not only going to help you with your DUI ticket, but she's also going to help you, if you want it, rebuild your life. So do you need to go to counseling? Do you need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous? Do you need support in any kind of a way? And it's sort of a kinder, gentler law firm, right? And so that is her marketing, and she does exceptionally well because she's taking what is a huge practice area in a very competitive market and making a distinguisher through marketing how she is, what her differentiators are between her and all of her competitors. And that's good marketing. That's just good marketing.
I want to ask you specifically about this woman because some of the most memorable marketing to me, I'm a big humor guy. If you've got, I'm sure you've heard of him, but Brian Wilson, the Texas Law Hawk.
Yes.
This guy.
Yes, I know exactly who he is.
If you've never heard of him before and you're watching this, it's like a Budweiser commercial. Everything that he does is like, he's got the Evel Knievel outfit on. He drives a motorcycle through a ring of fire and screams, Brian Wilson, the Texas Law Hawk, like over and over again. It's nonsensical. It's so funny to a guy like me.
It's so funny.
He's
but he's poking fun at it as well, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's all tongue in cheek. He's not doing
Yes.
it seriously.
No, not at
He's
all.
doing it tongue in cheek, making fun kind of car salesmen or whoever are sort of doing this in a serious way. He's kind of doing it tongue in cheek. It's hilarious. Yeah.
So I want to know because you could look that up. It's very memorable. But how does, I don't know her name, how does this DUI lawyer get across that, like, she's going to help you rebuild your life? Like, what does her actual marketing look like? Where is it? What's the whole plan behind it?
Well, so without getting too into the weeds on the tech stuff, which I could go on all day about, we used to believe, and still do, that pumping out consistent content on your website makes Google come back and look at you. That is still true. However, we've noticed in the past 2 years that there is great reward with something called a content pillar. And that's where you have, and there's even some new books that were written about it. I think one of them is called Content Pillar. Actually, I met the author at a marketing conference in St. Louis. And basically what it says is you've got one really big article at the top. It's like 3,000 to 5,000 words. You've got 3 sub pillars of content, and then you've got, 3,000 words, and then, at the bottom, just 1,000 words of these sort of smaller blocks. What they did when they were researching was this. They found that the way that people are finding information online, and this is going to speak to your point in just a second, Nick, is that they are not typing in necessarily DUI lawyer. I mean, they might be, and that's great. You want to capture those people too. But what they are finding is that people are typing in how to rebuild my life after a DUI. Or they are typing in, is Alcoholics Anonymous really anonymous? Or where is an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting near me? And what you do is you write articles on that, which is actually the information that people are searching for and that people need, that dovetail along with the legal services that you are providing, right? So for example, if you're a personal injury attorney, you do a lot of traffic accidents, kids are going back to school in a month, you can say, these are the top 10 driving apps for your teenager before they go to college, or this is the emergency supply kit your kid needs in their car. Now that has nothing to do with legal services, right? But when you provide value that is like legitimate value, not like cheesy value, but value that moms will want to share online, that people will want to share with their network, with their friends, family, community, you're going to be the one that they remember, if they need your legal services. So these content pillars are actually dumped all at once. They're all interlinked with each other in a very specific way, hyperlinked internally. And what happens is when Google sees that new content, the bots immediately crawl all of it at once, and you are seen as an expert in that particular area almost immediately. We've seen things happen in less than a month with this type of SEO work. And it works really great for people just like this woman who is a DUI attorney. She's actually not my client. She's just someone I know. But it works really well with people who are in a very niche, or they want to capture people at a particular stage of their journey looking for legal, or maybe they don't even need legal services yet, right? They're just interested in something. So I don't know what Steve would say to that. Sorry, that was a bit long-winded.
No, I mean, it's brilliant.
We see are doing exceptional.
Yeah, but it's brilliant to think about writing video, podcasting around not your exact subject, but the things that like tentacles of an octopus that you're poking around everything except what you do, and it all leads back to what you do. Like that's really smart. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's called spider webbing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really cool.
Steve, you released a book called Legal Business Development Isn't Rocket Science, which we encourage all of our listeners to check out. If you're watching this on a recast, there's a link below to go get this. But what would you say are some of the biggest things law firms tend to get wrong when it comes to their business development strategies?
Yeah, and I think primarily what it is that they don't have a strategy. That's number one. They're just like they're the rainmakers make the rain, the worker bees do the work, and everybody just hopes for the best. hopefully you have a good year. And there's really no alignment in the strategy of a firm or even of individuals having their own personal strategy. So I think that would be number one, is that there's no planning, there's no strategy. And even if there are like firms that say, hey, let's all put together, individual plans of how we're going to go about it this year, nobody follows them. They just take them. They go, this is great. And then they put it on a shelf and it's gone. So I think that's number one, is the lack of strategy. From there, one of the biggest things that I see in like the money left on the table by law firms is the lack of cross marketing. So if we're talking about a small mid-market firm, large firm, let's say they do, a dozen different, practice areas, and everybody's siloed. Everybody's doing their own thing. The IP does the IP, and the estate planning does the estate planning, and they all do that. And rarely are they cross-pollinating their clients. So the clients are using 3, 4, 5 different firms for all the things that they need, instead of one firm that could potentially take care of all their needs. And it's up to the individual, the management of the firm, but ultimately the individual lawyers being trained on how to do effective cross-marketing. And in my book, I have 2 chapters on that specific subject, giving away the questions to ask, so that, let's say you're doing transactional work and that's what your clients use you for. What questions can you ask that are going to pull out opportunities for litigation and labor and employment, IP, finance, real estate, things that are probably happening, but you're not privy to them because you didn't ask the questions. You didn't really bring it up. And so I think there's so many different aspects of marketing and business development that aren't being addressed, not only at a strategic level, but even on an actionable tactical level. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the firms, it's not that they're failing or that they're, in debt or losing money or in the red. It's just about how much more is there that they're not, like bringing in. It's like chips on the table, and they're just not scooping them in because they don't have the wherewithal or the buy-in from the group to have that type of function. So the book's got 51 chapters of all the best articles I've written for the Chicago Daily Law Bulletin. I've been writing for them for 8 years, and each one has its own tactical, actionable takeaways. And so it's I think a great resource for folks. And I cover a lot of ground: marketing, social media, time management, organization, business development being kind of at the heart of it.
I think I need to get your book.
Lot to
I'll
unpack.
just say that. Yeah. So another great book that I obviously recommend, that I actually own, and it comes in a great package if you get it straight from Annette, but you should just go buy it on Amazon, is Annette's book, Click Magnet, The Ultimate Digital Marketing Guide for Law Firms. So I want to ask you, because I think if you're watching this, you sort of don't have the best idea of what you might be doing as far as digital marketing. So what are some of the most easily correctable mistakes that you see law firms making before they come to a company like Law Quill?
I think that Steve's book probably, I haven't had an opportunity to read it yet, but it probably follows a sequence, right? It doesn't start in the middle, right? And I think that what a lot of law firms, businesses, right? They're just a business. And I will leave all the business development to the expert, Steve. That is not my area of expertise. So go to him if you need business development. Go to him or him, wherever. It's this way for me. And so what I find as far as digital marketing goes is, just like any business trying to do their accounting or their development or whatever, they're overwhelmed, right? You're just overwhelmed. And so you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to have a website. Am I supposed to be dancing on TikTok? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And really, there is a recipe, right, for how everything needs to go and the order in which it needs to happen, right? It's like a roadmap. That's the reason, that's my book. It starts with branding. And I know I may lose some people here. They may be like, this is woo-woo. It's just, fluff. And it isn't. Because really, branding is just an emotional connection between the services that you provide and your clients. If you get that right out of the gate, the rest of the journey is smoother. And you can change anytime, right? You're not locked in forever, 20 years later, doing the same thing. If you want to do something else, you can always rebrand. People rebrand all the time, right? So if you get your branding right, and then your next step is a website, right? And then your next step is to figure, I mean, I'm just talking about the marketing side, right? I'm not talking about business development. That's over there with Steve. But just with the marketing, you've got to have a website. You've got to have your own virtual real estate that people are coming to. And so sometimes what I see people making the mistake of is they throw together some website that's just, some sort of DIY website that kind of, frankly, between all of us, it kind of looks a little DIY, right? And they just start spraying and praying, right? They just start like, I'll put some on LinkedIn, I'll put something on Instagram. Now I got to be on Threads, right? That's like the hot new thing that all the marketers are talking about now is Threads. And, it's a flex if you have like a low thread number. But the thing is that it feels overwhelming. So the mistake that I find is that there is not a strategy, just like what Steve was saying. There's no strategy. There was just like, I don't know. I think I'm supposed to be dancing on TikTok. Let's just do that. And the truth, which is fine if that's what you do, but just because other people are doing it does not mean you need to do it. In fact, you probably don't need to be doing it at all. That's just my personal opinion. It works for some people, just like the Law Hawk, the Texas law, that works for some, right? But Nick, that's not going to work for, just because he's doing it does not mean that that's going to work for everybody, right? So you need to have a strategy, and the strategy really needs to start with branding. Know thyself, know who you are, know your distinguishers, know how you're different, know your niche, and just own it, who you are. And then know that your people it'll be a smaller subset of people, but those will be your people that you are really looking for. And then create a website around that, create content around that, create social media around that. And then, it takes time, like anything, right? It takes a hot minute for all of this to work. But in the end, if you do this right, it will be faster. Because if you do it wrong, if not wrong, but if you do it in the wrong order, right, you have to sort of scrap everything and start over at the beginning again, which is with branding. So that is typically the biggest problem that I find is that rightfully so, lawyers are overwhelmed and they are not sure where to start. So I always say, start with yourself. Just start with you. Start with what are the legal services you really want to provide and who are the clients you really want to walk through that door, and then go all in on that, on yourself.
And find someone to help you that knows what they're doing, whether that's myself, Annette, or others. Really research them, speak with their clients, validate that they've gotten results for others. I think we all get into relationships with people because it looks shiny and new, and then we make a mistake and we get burned, and then we kind of get soured by the experience, or soured by, I don't want to do SEO anymore because I paid $10,000 and it didn't work. Well, who did it for you? Where did that money go? What kind of analytics did you get? Well, none. Okay, well, you hired someone that didn't really have a good platform to help you. So I think a big part of where lawyers are going to find success is really getting a highly rated, validated resource to work with that has a track record. And that's a huge bolster to getting results fast versus having some bad experiences.
We will be right back after this short ad.
I felt like I always had to answer my calls, except the problem was you at times had to go to my voice message, which could potentially translate into losing clients. I've been utilizing Answering Legal for my firm since 2015, and truth be told, it was a game changer for me. I can be anywhere, and I'm getting my phones answered by Answering Legal. A strategic partner, as I call Answering Legal, provides a great reward. What is that reward? It's simple. It's time. Time with my family, time at the gym, time for whatever I want to do. I have a lot of Spanish-speaking clients, and it's such a joy to have them have the ability to call my firm and somebody on the other line is speaking their native language. They will not call me unless there's a new client, just to make sure that it's possible that that client can speak to me personally. As a private practitioner, I would highly recommend Answering Legal to other private practitioners. Now, every call goes answered.
listen, if you go to a car dealership or if you go to a doctor, go to a business development or marketer, there's good ones out there and there are bad ones out there, right? So, and just because they have a lot of, numbers behind them or whatever, or they're really, really big, doesn't make them good or bad. I would agree wholeheartedly with Steve, like underline, bold, go really do the research for yourself. I mean, recommendations are great, referrals are great, right? But the truth is that you want to find out from sort of not anonymous, but, unbiased sources, what were the results that they got? How did they get those results? Were they able to understand the ROI, their return on investment? And what made working with Steve so amazing and so effective and so brilliant that you would recommend him go really research that? And I think that is really important for lawyers to do their due diligence for any third party service that they're going to hire, right? Accountants, whoever you're going to hire. Because frankly, a lot of third parties services, are not inexpensive. And so you want to make sure that before you sort of invest both financially and frankly a little emotionally, right? with these people, that you know what you're going to get. So I wholeheartedly agree with Steve. 100%.
I'll take one more point on this, and then we can move on there, Nick. But I spoke to a gentleman today that's in the technology marketing space for lawyers, and his website, first of all, his marketing, he didn't have his website on his LinkedIn. I couldn't find his website. I finally got him to give me the website name. It was like a landing page. And I'm thinking, here's a guy who's in the marketing space, who's trying to demonstrate to lawyers his ability to convert leads and get, the brand built. And his brand was terrible and his website was terrible. And, the cobbler had no shoes on his kid's feet. So, I think there's so many different things that we need to just be aware and awake about when validating, folks to help and don't fall back on, I'll just do it myself. That's a cop out. And again, if you want to take the time to learn it and be an expert, that's one thing, at the risk of, taking time away from business development and client development and working with clients and family. But ultimately, the smart lawyers find the best vendors, the best relationships, and invest there but do your due diligence and look at all the different aspects of it before you pull the trigger.
People who go to law school typically, I mean, I went to law school too, but typically they did that so that they can practice the law, right? Not so that they can learn how to, craft meticulous P&L statements or do business, all of those things, right? You have to find people to be on your team that you trust and will help you get to where you're going. Otherwise, I mean, really, how can you do everything? You are a business owner. You can't do all the things.
I've been here at Answering Legal for a little over 9 years. It's only open for 10. So I was here, I like to say, on day 2. And we didn't have any marketing. We didn't have a website. It was me and another guy. We built a website. We started marketing. And what we got heavily invested in was SEO because we didn't have the budget to invest in what we at the time only referred to as CPC, which now I just refer to as like paid media. And over the years, right, SEO is a big lift, especially when you're like a 1 or 2 person department. We've grown, we grow, and I've had multiple vendors do Google ads for me or run Facebook ad campaigns. And not that any of it was terrible, but it didn't really go so well. And we would switch to a vendor and we would switch to a vendor. And every time that I went to a new vendor, I would try and compare them to like my previous experience and say, well, these people charged me X amount of money and 10% of this. And why should you get that? And everybody's different, right? The one thing that I learned in that time span was not to judge a company just because they charge more than a competitor. I currently pay what I consider to be an absurd amount of money to the people who help me run my paid media. But they are phenomenal at it. It is truly, to me, ridiculous. And they've been a customer of ours because they work with so many law firms. They've sent us customers. We send them customers. We've had a relationship with them. I'm like, you guys just charge too much. Like, we're not a PI firm making millions of dollars per case. I can't justify that cost to you. Throw that out the window and go with the people who you can identify most with, who you have the best relationship with, who understand your business the best, and can demonstrate to you, right? Like, sit down, have a call with them, right? Like, everything Annette and Steve say to me makes so much sense that if they approached me and said, I understand your business, I understand what your target audience is, this is where I think you should be, and they can come to you and articulate it in that way, it might be worth it for you to give them a shot. I'm going to move on, though, because I can be long-winded as well. I'm going to talk about AI because everybody has to talk about AI. It's mandatory if you have a podcast. In your opinion, should law firms be eager to utilize AI to assist with their marketing efforts? Not necessarily their case efforts, but business development, marketing.
I mean, I'll say this. I think that the party line now that everybody says is that, AI has its place, right? They're not our robot overlords quite yet. Everybody talks about ChatGPT, which kind of cracks me up because, frankly, there were tools like this like a couple of years ago, right? Like Jarvis AI and stuff like that. I mean, this is not really new. It's just that the public all knows about it now and it's free. So all of this stuff kind of existed for a while now. I think ChatGPT is great as a starting point. What you will notice if you use it a lot and you see other law firms using it a lot is that it gives lists. It loves lists. It loves numbered lists, right? So whenever I see content now that has numbered lists, my eyes always kind of raise like, was that written by ChatGPT? And the truth is that everybody gets really excited. Oh, I can have this tool help me write content. The truth is, if everybody is using that tool to write content, all the content is kind of going to sound the same. And at the end of the day, Google still has to put, even if they're not penalizing you for using AI, they still have to choose, these Google bots still have to choose someone to put at the top of Google, right? So, there's, I don't know how many chocolate chip cookie recipes out there, but one is at the top of Google, right? So at the end of the day, you have to write content that is going to get you to the top of Google or whatever it is. So in terms specifically of content, I would say that, AI is great. You can put in a prompt, hey, give me 7 points to make about the differences between wills versus trusts or something like that. And then, take it from there. Regarding visuals, there's one AI tool called beautiful.ai, and it will help you make amazing the kids are calling it slide decks right now. It's PowerPoint, right? I'm old. But it'll help you make amazing but you have to check it because it's wrong a lot of the time with the content that it puts in there. And then, you can make images for social media as well and little snippets as well. So it's a tool, right? Just like a car helps you get somewhere faster, right? But the car doesn't know where to go unless you tell it where to go. So that's kind of the analogy that I use. It's definitely better than a horse and buggy, right? But you are still the one driving. Well, I guess they have self-driving cars now, but you still have to tell them where to go.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where legal and lawyers are with AI right now. I think there's a lot of concern because they're lawyers and risk averse that they want to, put all their chips in on that, or that they feel comfortable using it not only for the law but for marketing. And even with marketing, I think if you're using it for SEO, right, you can get, caught by Google. If you're not, running it through a filter, you're not using it in a more authentic way. The different question that I'm wondering too is for the law firms that count on SEO and content creation and pay-per-click, how is that going to change? How is when AI gets so good that you ask a question and it just gives you an answer, not pages and pages of search results? How's that going to change the world for lawyers that count on? And, Annette, I'd put that to you. If there's, thousands and thousands of lawyers that are counting on pay-per-click right now, and Nick, you're getting your business that way, right? And that all changes in the next 3 to 5 years or whatever the number is, then how do you get business if it's a whole different model?
Well, I mean, we'll have to see, right? But what we're seeing right now is that AI at this point in time cannot create anything itself. I have now, for I think it's 8 months now, typed in to ChatGPT who founded Law Quill, and it still has never gotten the answer right. Not yet. And I've been around for a while. So, and I keep telling it, hey, and it says all my friends. And so I go on LinkedIn, I'm like, hey, thanks a lot, guys, for starting Law Quill. I appreciate it. They're like, well, we're silent partners, clearly, because they didn't start it. They're not even involved in it. So I have no idea how good AI is going to get. But at the end of the day, it's kind of like a photograph. Every photograph was taken in the past. There's no photograph that's taken of the future, right? So it can only give you, at this point, content that has already been created. I don't really know of anybody that's using specifically ChatGPT for answers. I do know that at the top of Google now, I have it. I think a lot of other people have it too, where you can have this little box at the top that is AI generated. But again, that AI generated answer is being pulled from everything underneath and links to other websites, because the truth is that Google is not a non-for-profit organization. They are a for-profit organization. And even if Google is using tools like AI to compile information, their bread and butter, right, comes from advertising. So that is not going to go away. And I just don't see at this point, and I could be mistaken and eat my words in 5 years. But the truth is that at the end of the day, people do business with people. I don't think that that's ever going to change. So even if someone gets a quick answer on something, they are going to go to an actual person that they trust to verify that. Like if Google tells me some sort of medical information, right, I'm still going to go to a doctor to make sure that Google is right. If I type in something about the law or about a DUI or about the statute of limitations, that might be a correct answer, but I'm not able to give my complete, case study of everything that happened in my particular circumstance. I need to go to a lawyer to be able to humanly analyze that. And so then I'm going to be looking for a law firm. So yeah. I think it will change, but I think it will, everybody, listen, there was a huge freak out about a year and a half ago when Google came out with these featured snippets, right? Everybody freaked out. Everybody's like, oh no, there's featured snippets. That means that people will just click on the answer and they'll never go to any websites, right? But that's not true, actually. What happens is that people see those answers, they see other answers. If they really have a question, they're not going to just be like, oh, okay, well, that's the answer then. Here I go on my way, right? They're going to keep digging for whatever that is and end up on those websites. So I still think that SEO will be important. And I think that, frankly, the use of AI hopefully will just make it easier for them to find the answers that are true, hopefully, and get to the people that are providing the services that they need, whatever those are.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here laughing to myself because I thought of your example of somebody typing in a question to, like, I don't know, Mayo Clinic, typing in their health issues and then, not going to a doctor about it. But I thought of, if you've ever watched Parks and Rec, where Leslie Knope comes into the office, she's got the flu, and Chris, I forget his last name, Chris Pratt. Yeah, he types in he's like, Leslie, I typed your symptoms into the internet, and it seems like you might have network connectivity issues. I'm just sitting here trying not to laugh because that is so funny. Yeah. But that's how I liken, that's how I think about people with search. Also, Annette, is that, sure, we can give them as many, like, I'll give you this example, right? Like, say I'm looking for business development and I type in, I'm looking for help with business development in my law firm, and I learn all the stuff that I possibly can from all of Steve's resources that I might run into on his website. I still don't want to go do all that, right? So it is really important for us to keep creating these answers to these questions that are going to keep coming out. That's my take on it, at least. I don't know what you think.
I mean, I guess I was going more towards like, all right, so let's say that there's, 100 lawyers competing for pay-per-click ads in personal injury in San Francisco. Okay, and there's a lot more than that. And Bing and Google all decide that the model is, I can type in, hey, I've been in a truck accident. These are the injuries. I want the largest possible settlement I can get. And who should I talk to? Instead of giving me page after page after page, it's going to give you one answer. This is the one answer that I want, and that I'm going to pay, and the lawyer's going to pay a premium for that one answer. The other lawyers are going to have to go find something else, some other way to get business. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't have a crystal ball either.
So
Annette,
I think it won't work, but I don't think it'll
they're
work
always going to
that way,
have
because
pages and pages of answers. I mean, again, that's where I'm seeing and hearing, like with Bing, for example, that's the future of, like, I want to plan a trip to Europe. All right, I'm going to tell the computer every single thing I want in that trip, from the kind of place I want to stay, the food I want to eat, the wine I want to drink, what I want to see, and it's going to plan an entire itinerary for me based on that, okay? Versus me having to go to all these travel sites and go through dozens and dozens of videos. I mean, that's the future of AI from my perspective and from what I'm hearing in the news down the road. And so that I just believe, and even speaking with one of my friends who's one of the top web analytics guys in the world, that that things are going to be changing in that direction. So I'm concerned for the future of lawyers who are counting on certain types of platforms, that they're not recognizing that they have to diversify and think about the future, maybe not today or tomorrow, but within the next number of years, that things could be changing, and it might be more of a subscription model that Google is asking for, the way we pay for Netflix. And now we're doing that with Google because we want to have access to asking and getting really good information.
Well, so I'll just say this about that. Planning a trip to Italy that has specific types of food or places you want to visit is very different than asking an AI model, who is the best attorney to represent me. As of right now, and I think in the future, they're never going to say who the best is, who is the best attorney to represent me, what is the most that I can get for this settlement. Even if you use advertising dollars on that, it will have to disclose that it's advertising. They can't just give you an answer and make it seem that that's, somehow, not somehow, not being influenced by money. So advertising is still advertising, right? And
but that's where the subscription model would come in, that I'm not getting that's not how they're making money anymore. Google is.
Well, I think then what will
happen,
they're going to
have a subscription model where we would all pay as consumers to get the best information.
Yeah, see, I disagree with that as well.
Well, it's all made up in that. I mean, it's all hypothetical.
Because
I'm not talking
asks
about
us to pay. Well, like if Google asked us all to pay, right? Like if they said we're going to get rid of
ads,
advertising, or maybe they keep advertising, I don't know, but either way, they ask us to pay. I guarantee you, just like there was an explosion after ChatGPT, right? I don't know how many thousands upon thousands of AI tools exist now that did not exist at this time last year. I believe that if Google started asking people to pay for that, they just wouldn't pay. They would go to Bing, or they would go to another different type of search engine that exists. Or new search engines would come in and sort of flood the market, and then you would get, capitalism and more competition involved in it. I don't think that Google is not the only search engine. And I feel like the minute that they started asking everyone to subscribe and pay for their search engine, people would just go elsewhere. That's just
but you know how it is. They don't do that day one, right? They give you the free upgrade, and then they say, oh, by the way, now if you want to keep this with no ads, better search results, better information, faster, simpler, whatever, easier, that you're going to pay $9.99 a month. Everyone's going to do it, and eventually, and then they're going to keep bumping it up until they have even more money than they have now. I mean, again, we all do this. I don't pay for ads on YouTube. I have no ads on my Hulu. I mean, how many streaming services do we have that we're paying for and we don't even think twice about it. And I have a half a dozen or more. So I think I just see the future of the way people are making money. It may have to change.
I think there's just two different sort of lines of thought here, right? The first is, what is the business model of Google? And then the second one is, how will AI be used on search platforms? So I think that those are two different, they're kind of getting conflated a bit. As far as I can see, maybe, I guess we don't know. But I do know that as of right now, the way that we have seen AI work is that it can't create anything new. So if it is only able to rely on the content that already exists, okay, or on content that is paid for, if you want to go that direction, there's really no difference between what is happening now, which is content that already exists, and content that is being paid for. I mean, by your model, then we would say only one law firm is ever at the top of Google.
No, it'd be the law firm that represents the right result for what I'm looking for. So if the internet's scraping everything, it says this is the it's all the past. So it scrapes who has the best results for trucking accidents, who has the best reviews,
how do you do that?
The same way it does it for everything. How do you get to find a good pizza place in your area? It's the same. It's the same technology.
Well,
they take
Google
all the
AI
results.
can't scrape the internal. Google AI can't scrape the internal data of a law firm to find out what its results are.
Do law firms post what the verdict was of the reward they got for their clients?
Many don't, because it's against ethics violations. Many don't.
And many do. I mean, that's like marketing 101
Right.
is to tell everybody how much you want.
I'm gonna jump in here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and move this along. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no. Yeah, Nick, because there's just no answer to it, right? We're all just sort of trying to predict the future that really will be probably interesting for all of us to see. We just don't know.
Well, we're gonna have to find out. If our listeners want to continue following your work and connect with your company further, where do you recommend they go? I'll start with you, Steve.
Sure. So my website is fretzin.com. It's FRETZIN. It's my last name.com. You can follow my podcast on all of the major platforms, your phone being one of them, at Be That Lawyer is the podcast, done over 300 episodes in just over 3 years. And you can also email me directly at steve@fretzin.com if you're interested in getting evaluated on your business development chops, marketing chops, and see where the gaps are and evaluate, where to go from there. I'm always happy to take 30 minutes to spend with a wonderful attorney to talk shop for a little bit. So happy to, and thanks again for having me, Nick.
Thanks, Steve. What about you, Annette?
I'm at lawquill.com. That's my website. And you can find me on LinkedIn. It's kind of my happy place. If you would like to connect with me, or you can email me, Annette@lawquill.com, and I'd be more than happy to visit if you have any questions about marketing.
Thanks, guys. Special shout out to Annette Choti and Steve Fretzin for joining me on the show today. And thank you to all of our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this conversation, and we will be back with another episode of Everything Except the Law soon. Be sure to check out previous episodes of our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel. Links to everything covered in today's conversation can be found in the description of this episode. We hope you have a great rest of summer, everyone.